my honor to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker, Mr. Vijay Moras, Trustee of Cfal Mangalore, co-leads the Amara, Prakutiye initiative alongside Professor Dr. Smita Hegde, launched on World Environment Day, June 5, 2025. Amara is a citizen-driven urban greening campaign dedicated to enhancing the city's green cover. Under his leadership, the initiative has planted nearly 40,000 saplings, including more than 11,000 indigenous trees and shrubs and around 30,000 mangroves across Mangalore. Each sapling is geotagged for real-time monitoring, ensuring accountability and long-term survival. The campaign has set an ambitious goal to increase Mangalore's urban green cover from the current 6% to 30% by 2040. Extending beyond Mangalore, Mr. Moras also spearheads the Mysuru Tree Count project, modeled on Cfal's successful approach to documenting and conserving urban trees. By engaging students, civic groups, and businesses, Amara has evolving into a collaborative, sustainable model for urban reforestation with potential for replication in other cities. Sir, we are truly honored to have you and extend a warm welcome to you. We are looking forward to your valuable insights. Over to you, sir.
You probably heard about climate change. You probably heard that the planet is getting warmer. You've already heard many times and multiple times that the Arctic ice is melting, the polar caps are melting. You probably heard the cities and the countries that are going to get flooded. You're probably seeing the effect of climate change in Mangalore, in the Himalayas, and parts of the country right now. You also probably have seen movies that have shown you the devastation that's going to happen through climate change. But does it really mean anything to you? Because honestly, it doesn't mean a lot to many people. As I was preparing for this talk, I thought about explaining this in a very different way. Have you, in your families, seen a drunkard? Has anyone seen a drunkard in their family? You have. Okay. I had one, and my own uncle was a drunkard. My grandfather had worked, my mom's father had worked really hard. He was a construction worker, he had a textile shop, he had done multiple things to make a living and had accumulated a sizable wealth in his village back in Kinigoli. But my uncle, in one generation, was able to squander it and destroy everything he had created in a lifetime, leaving nothing for his children and for his spouse. Now, what has drunkenness got to do with climate change? In the case of a drunkard, his addiction is alcoholism. In the case of climate change, our addiction is consumerism. We're consuming the earth's resources, whether it's this forest, the fishes in the oceans, anything that the earth has, whether it is the oil and gas, whether it is the steel, whether it is anything you think about, whether it is human resources, we are consuming at a pace that we're leaving nothing behind for the generations to come. The planet has taken billions of years to produce these resources, and in a matter of 150 years, we're squandering it all. And you know what the irony is? No matter who you ask, the politicians, the organizations, the parents, we're saying that we're doing it for our future generation. That's the irony. You want another irony? Think about any nation, think about any country, and we are talking about prosperity to one number, GDP. The more we consume, the more prosperous we are. How? How is prosperity measured in the destruction of the planet? If you have a drunkard in your family, you have a gambler in the family, you have any kind of addictions in your family, whose fault is it? Is it the fault of governance? Or is it the fault of education? Because we're talking about climate literacy here, and we're talking about environmental governance here, but we need to know where the fault is. And the answer is quite complicated. The answer is, in the case of a drunkard, it could be lack of connections, lack of governance, and lack of education as well. Because if you see the history, as far as 1970, people knew, the governments knew, the companies knew, the world and the planet was getting hotter. The first report to ever come, and I want you to check it out as I was preparing for this talk, I pulled it out, was called the Charney Report. It was published in 1979, almost nearly 50 years ago. And it said carbon dioxide and the climate, and it said that if things don't get changed, the world is going to get hotter by 3 degrees, and the devastation that's going to come is going to be unimaginable. 50 years ago? Now, as much as the environmentalists and the scientists have tried to propagate this, you know what the sad part is? That lobbyists and companies, it could be the oil industry, it could be the manufacturing companies, have put in efforts and their profits to make sure that this is not taken care of. Imagine this, right? You're making more profits, and you're using those profits to put in lobbyists in the government and draft policies that are going to make more profits at the cost of the planet. Are we going to ever learn this? Think about it, right? If you have a drunkard in your family, the next generation definitely learns. My dad's, if I go to my dad's side of the family, my grandfather has to have an alcoholism habit, and his children, that's my father and any of his siblings, chose not to touch alcohol at all. Do we have to go through that pain so that the next generation goes through this pain, this devastation, and they learn from the mistakes of our generation, of us, to correct the planet? Is it even going to be possible? Now let's talk about climate literacy. What's the real story here? If I talk to anyone, and if I talk to most people, and even if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, and says, what's the number one reason for the climate change, the greenhouse gases, everybody will say, the fossil industry. True or not true? If you want to look at the data, and Bill Gates has published it in his recent book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, and it's come out recently, and if you read that, amount of greenhouse gases that is pushed into the atmosphere year by year is a staggering number, and the number is 51 billion tons. You know what that number means? Unimaginable, right? So I thought of explaining it to you. Let's say if every truck can hold 5 tons. If you see a truck outside that brings cement to your houses or granite to your houses or anything, it holds 5 to 10 tons. That would require 1 lakh trucks to carry the carbon dioxide or the greenhouse gases that we're putting into the atmosphere. Even that's really hard to imagine. But if you see that if every truck, that 1 lakh trucks are lined up from here to all the way to Bombay, that's 1,000 kilometers, that's the amount of greenhouse gases we're pumping it to the atmosphere. Which is the number one industry that's pumping it? It's actually manufacturing. That comes from cement, that comes from steel, that comes from the manufacturing of plastics. And of that 51 billion, the number is 31% is going to it. Manufacture of electricity to run our homes, to run our factories, to run our everything is the next number, 25%. You might not think that agriculture, industrial agriculture, or the farming, industrial farming is a big contributor, but the next one is there. 19% of the greenhouse gases pumped into the atmosphere is coming from industrialized farming or industrialized agriculture. Transportation, that is from the vehicles you drive to the airplanes, to the other vehicles, is the 19%. And the next thing is buildings, that is the heating and cooling. Do you know, to produce 1 ton of steel, 1 ton, a truck carries 10 tons to 20 tons. You're going to pump in 1.5 times of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere? Do you know, to make 1 ton of steel, we're pumping 1 ton of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere? Everything you consume, everything, the clothes you buy, for the petrol, 1 liter of petrol, every time you put 1 liter of petrol into your cars, into my car, I am pumping 2.3 liters of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. A couple of years ago, when I was getting aware of the climate change, I wanted to say that I wanted to buy an electric car. I wanted to look green. I wanted to promote it green. I wanted to promote sustainability. So I said, let me buy an electric car. My son, who was in 8th standard at that time, said, Dad, please don't, because electric cars are not green. Is it true? Is it right or is it wrong? Electric cars are not green? Odd, right? Did you know, to manufacture a car, it takes 8 to 10 metric tons of carbon dioxide is pumped into the atmosphere. Electric cars have batteries, and batteries takes much more effort to make, and so they pump another 4 to 5 metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. 15 metric tons to manufacture an electric car versus 10 metric tons to manufacture a regular car. That's not just the problem. If you use an electric car, and if that electricity is made from renewable sources, you understand renewable sources, then it's fine. At least in the lifetime of the car, you become a net zero. But if your power to your electric car is coming from the coal plant next door, what's the point? Are you green? No, you pumped more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and then you're again pumping more as you're putting electricity into your car. What's the message here? You think technology will save us? If you think that technology is going to save us from this climate disaster, we have got it wrong. It's just like the alcoholic. Think about the alcoholic. He thinks that when I grow older, I'm going to take all the medicines, I've got all the technology coming from medicines, that's going to save me. Really? It's going to save your liver? It's going to save your kidneys? No. It's not. In the 1970s, if somebody had asked you and you want to go look at it, how much carbon dioxide, carbon is not a bad thing. First I want to tell you, carbon is not a bad thing. Until the carbon is under the ground as fossil fuels, or in the trees, or in the soil, carbon is not a bad thing. Carbon is a bad thing when it's in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, as greenhouse gases. I'm only talking about carbon dioxide because even though carbon dioxide is just 70% of the total greenhouse gases, I'm talking about the majority of it here. If you go back to the 70s, the forest and the green lands, for example, consumed or harvested 10 to 12 billion tons of carbon from the atmosphere, and that was the carbon sequestering that was coming from the forests. The oceans, on the other hand, sequestered another amount of carbon, that was another equal to 10 to 12 billion tons of carbon into the oceans. Today, as we stand today, 2025, we have cut down the forest around the world, and it's come down to 5 billion tons. As the oceans, if you see the carbons that are sequestering by the oceans, it is happening in the colder parts of the planet, in the Pacific Oceans, near the polar regions, and carbon is getting sequestered. But as the water gets more acidic, as the water gets warmer, the carbon sequestering that's happening from the oceans too has been destroyed, is getting destroyed. So you do the math. If you want to be a net zero world, which is by 2050, that's the target put in the Paris Agreement, 2050 net zero, we have to have carbon sequestering coming back from the greening of the planet, planting the trees, bringing back the forests, to back to that number, 10 to 12 billion tons, and then again the oceans absorbing 10 to 12 tons, and the greenhouse gas and the greenlands, totally around 24 billion tons, and we have to reduce our consumption and bring it down from, so that the carbon greenhouse gases that we're pumping into the atmosphere goes from 51 billion back to 24 billion. So if you're pumping 24 billion and we're absorbing 24 billion, that's the net zero. You might think the governments know it, the scientists know it, and they're doing much. The number one polluter on this planet is coal. Are we using the most efficient way to make our electricity? No. Are we using the most innovative way to manufacture using, like for example, natural gases or anything? No. We want the cheapest way to manufacture. And as a result of which, the profits are higher for these companies and the planet is getting hurt. The next thing I want to talk about is whose responsibility is it? Scientists have really done their job for many, many years. The engineers are doing the jobs of bringing innovation and technology into the planet. But I really think that unless the people in arts are able to move the planet, you cannot, if you want humanity to change, that humans to change, you cannot reason to the brain. It doesn't, humans don't change by reasoning. You have to touch them emotionally. And unless you touch them emotionally, unless you touch the generation, millions and billions of people emotionally, and this is where the artists come. It's through the arts, to the poems, to the songs, to the dance, to the song, to the movies, and to the theater, are people moved. And until I move, and the people move you emotionally, and use your emotional energies to change the planet, not going to happen. So the people in arts have that role to play there. The people, for example, in the accountants have to audit these firms, have to audit these organizations, and have to say that are they people really doing it right? You know the Paris Agreement, and now that every country has given the NDCs, that is the national deterministic contributions that have to come, and every 5 years they have to say what are their contributions, what are they going to do for climate change, and that is a racket mechanism. That is that every 5 years they have to do more and more and more. So by 2050 we reach that net zero contributions. In addition to this, now the accountants have come into it. Every company will be forced to have an international sustainability standardization boards where companies have to report the impact of climate change that is happening effect on the company, and how much are they contributing to the climate change. As students, you might think that this is not going to be possible. If you want to see the truth, you'll probably see it and say that how much money is going to subsidize the rich companies, the oil and gas companies, or the other rich companies. The number in the planet is $7 billion or $7 trillion. You can't even imagine. $7 trillion in subsidies to the rich companies. Well, the global economy is $110 trillion. So 7% of the money is going to subsidies. If that money was diverted to climate change or addressing climate change, change would really happen. You and I, all of us here in this room, has gone through the COVID pandemic. When the COVID pandemic hit and the impact was real, the governments acted, companies acted, people acted, communities acted. And because we acted in unison, we were able to handle the pandemic in 2 years. We have to act together to make this change happen. As we talk about Amara, and as the youngest, as a small boy, probably I was in 7th standard, The first time that I ever cried when a tree was cut was when my dad cut the mango trees in our houses, in my house. We had 7 mango trees, and there was a mundappa tree that I loved the most. And when he cut it down for timber, for his trucks, I'd cried the most. And as I've seen movies and I've seen documentaries, I realized that I need to do something about it, and I started planting trees in 2018 along with my friend Jeet. First year I planted 200 trees, and the next year 1,000 trees, and so on. Until one day in 2023-24, I saw a really small hill. I've seen hills many times, and I saw a dense forest on a hill, and I saw the number of trees in it, and I said, my God, the number of trees on a really small hill is in lakhs. What I'm able to do in a lifetime is nothing. Nature is doing it at an unprecedented rate. I just need to get out of the way. And that's when I really wanted to do something collectively. It was at the time that's when Smitha joined us, and she had the study of the tree counts of Mangalore, and the number was staggeringly low. That is 6.some% of the public spaces is taken by green cover. 6%. And that's when we started with the notion that can we promote Mangalore to be a place where the country can change from? Can Mangalore be the first net zero place where having 30% of the public spaces at 30% green cover and 50% of the private spaces as green cover? Can we pitch it? And that is how Amara was born. We too, in our schools, if you come to Cfal on campus, we have tried and we are working very hard to make every single structure that we build as green as possible by using mud bricks and using technology that can consume less and less. But we know that it is only through collective action, and it's through you, the students here and the educators here, a change will happen. I want you guys to end, as I end this talk and this keynote, I want you to close your eyes and visualize. Can you close your eyes and visualize? As you're walking down the streets around Mangalore, you're able to breathe the freshest air possible. The sunlight, the few elements, the sunlight that hits you is so kind and so gentle because it's coming through the shade of the trees. The wind that is touching your hair and your body is so pleasant. And the ground that you see, the fragrance of the ground that you see from the soil that is seen and you smell it, it's so refreshing. You're seeing communities walking together, children happy around the places and the parks, and you're happy to be there. When you walk down the beaches are clean. The place is pleasant. The waters are clean, and you too are enjoying their nature, and you're letting the nature and the fishes there thrive as well. You're living in a world where prosperity is not measured just in terms of wealth. Your prosperity is measured by the health you have, the happiness that you have, and the community that you have. Not just the community with human species, but the community with all species on the planet. And that's the world that we want to leave behind together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for an insightful, engaging, and forward-looking keynote. Your words have certainly set the stage for critical discussions and inspired us to think more deeply about our role in climate action. To express our gratitude to our keynote speaker, I now invite Ms. Akshara to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Social Work, St. Aloysius deemed to be University, it is my privilege to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our chief guest, Mr. Vijay Moras, Trustee of Cfal and co-lead of Amara initiative, for being enlightening us with his inspiring keynote address. Sir, your gracious presence and inspiring keynote address have not only enlightened us on urgency of climate literacy, but have also motivated us to take meaningful steps towards environmental governance and sustainability. Your words have set a powerful tone for the sessions that will follow and will surely resonate with all of us. As we move forward in this seminar, we are truly honored by your valuable time and wisdom you have shared with us this morning. Thank you once again for being part of SAMPRATHI 2025 and giving a wonderful start to this seminar. Thank you, sir.